have applied linguistics, it means that the real life problems that actually we may encounter as teachers, as researchers, actually are considered as parts of applied linguistics. So applied linguistics deal with the real world English language teaching problems, or the areas of study which is related to issues and considerations in the context in which language is used as the medium of instruction. The study of how to use language in everyday life, things like teaching, understanding how people communicate, and solving language-related problems. Exactly. Careers in applied linguistics will involve research, teaching, a common focus on language acquisition. That's right. Application of second language theories to the practice of learning. Good one. So we apply theories. That's right. And the study of language is used in real life situations. Exactly. So it is related to doing research and applying language in everyday communication, in academic context, in occupational actually context, and the way language related problems and language related actually issues can be handled. Exactly, good. So you have good understanding of the concept of applied linguistics. That's great. With this introduction, let's see what آقای جاسم Muhammad Saleh wrote. Discover what second language acquisition is. Differentiate between first and second language acquisition, and see steps in the language acquisition process. Good. Thank you. Thank you. So Iraq has great English teachers. You have good understanding of these concepts. Great. All of you are teachers in Iraq? I mean, all of you teach in schools? That's great. No. So some of you teach, for example, in private institutes? Most of you, good. So before we start actually talking about these areas, can I ask you a question? I mean, what books do you study actually in language institutes? Actually, do you teach? Okay, because your students study. What books are the materials used in institutes, private institutes? For example, in Iran, we use Headway, Interchange, Top Notch. I want to see what books you teach in private institutes. Headway, What about the rest? So I asked, what books do you teach in private institutes in Iraq? Texta, Garnet, And now, you teach a novel. From primary up to secondary. Drama you teach, okay. Second language theories. Ağay Ali Rabi wrote about applied linguistics. Okay, thank you very much. So let's start talking about areas of research in applied linguistics. So we have several areas that can provide us with various topics so that we conduct research. One area is about language skills and components. What do we mean by language skills? Can you write in the chat box? What do we mean by language skills? Reading, writing, speaking, and listening. That's right. And what do we mean by components? What about components? Grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Okay, so these are 3 components. So we have 4 skills and 3 components, but we can have a 5th skill. Do you know what the 5th skill is? What is the 5th skill? So we have 4 skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. What is the 5th one? Can you say, can you guess? Or have you read about this? Yeah, that's right. No, pronunciation is the 3rd component. Okay, we have grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation as 3 components. The 5th skill is culture. Okay, so the 5th actually skill is culture. Nowadays, because of the intercultural communication that exists, and because, you know, many people are using English and people become connected through social media, so teaching cultural points and you know, the ability to interact with people of different cultural background is considered as the 5th skill. So in some of the English language teaching books, it is written teaching culture as the 5th skill. Okay, so we can say, traditionally speaking, we have 4 skills and 3 components. But nowadays, in the modern and postmodern era, we have a 5th skill, which is culture. Now, let's see what topics we can actually focus on when we want to conduct research related to language skills and components. Different techniques and different ways that we can use to teach language skills and components can be considered as the potential topics to conduct research. Can you give me some topics related to skills and components? For example, I made examples previous session. For example, I said teaching vocabulary through pictures. It is a topic that, you know, has been the focus of many studies before. Can you give me some topics related to actually the skills and components in applied linguistics? How the students learn the spoken language. Good. This is one actually topic that has been studied before. What else can you say as the examples? Phonology and I can't understand the next word that you wrote. Reading, you mean, maybe, huh? How understanding the correct pronunciation of the words can influence the student's reading ability. Best strategies of teaching listening. That's right. Good. So whenever we talk about teaching techniques that we can use in order to teach or enhance the quality of learning when it comes to different skills and components can be the topic for study. The ability to understand, speak, and pronounce the language correctly. Yeah, for example, you can say what factors can influence a language learner's ability to understand, speak, and pronounce the words correctly. Teaching vocabulary through movies. Yes, it can be a topic. Teaching, writing, and speaking through a particular strategy. Good. For example, you may say how topic familiarity, how being familiar with the content of reading comprehension text can influence the student's performance in reading comprehension activities. For example, when they read 2 texts, one text has a topic which is familiar to the students. For example, the students live in villages. The topic of the reading passage is agriculture. Okay, farming. Of course, this topic is more familiar to a student who lives in a village compared to a topic which talks about artificial intelligence or the latest technological advances. Use a spoken language as a primary, not the written. Good, thank you. Another area of research is language proficiency and communicative competence. So can you tell me the definition of communicative competence, what it is? So what do we mean by communicative competence? Components of language and associated terminology. Learning from the story, yes, so related to language skills, good. So what is communicative competence? Do you know its parts, its factors? The ability to use the target language appropriately, So it has various dimensions. Do you know dimensions of communicative competence? It can be related to speaking and listening proficiency, that's right, but it has its own aspects. You know, communicative competence has four components or four dimensions. One is grammatical competence, when the students know the grammatical rules of a language. The second dimension is discourse competence. It means that how the students are able to connect the ideas and form the speech or write something. The third time is sociolinguistic competence. It means how appropriately the students can use the language. For example, when they want to talk to their boss in the workplace, when they talk to actually their sister, when they talk to their friend, they use different ways and different words and different actually rules when they want to communicate with different people of different levels. This is sociolinguistic competence. In different contexts, people use formal or informal structures. And we have a strategy competence. It means that sometimes the students may forget something, so they replace it with something else. For example, you may forget a word like umbrella. Instead of saying the word, you may use a definition for that, something that we use in rainy days. This is a strategy competence. It means that replacing the shortcoming you have in your language knowledge with something so that the problem is solved, so that communication is not broken. So let's see what your friends wrote. The ability to use language correctly and appropriately. That's right. The context, audience, and purpose. Great. A good definition. Thank you, آقای, am I right? آقای زهیر صبار انور. Phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. That's great, Farah. The ability to achieve communicative goals in a socially appropriate manner. Good. Tests are important tools in education and training framework. Yes, good. A very long one. Let me read it. Provide tests that assess skills accurately. Principle of relevance. Thank you. The communicators, comprehensive knowledge and appropriate application of language. That's right. Using the language. Exactly. Thank you very much. Great. So one area of research can be language proficiency and communicative competence. For example, you may use role playing in your classes. I mean, you ask the students to play different roles in conversations and see how their sociolinguistic competence actually improves. You may actually provide the students with a group work activity in the class and see to what extent their language proficiency improves. This is an area of research which has potential topics to be conducted by the researchers. Another area is about language learning strategies. I'm sure you actually have heard about language learning strategies. Have you heard the name of Rebecca Oxford? Rebecca Oxford was a researcher who presented the list of language learning strategies. Have you heard her name? So let me write her name here. Rebecca Oxford was actually the scholar who presented the list of language learning strategies, cognitive strategies, for example, when you take notes, when you listen to something. And based on your notes, you can give a summary of the listening. That is a kind of cognitive strategy. Metacognitive strategy, for example, you say, okay, when I want to study this section of the book, I need 10 minutes. So you pre-plan for what you want to do. So language learning strategies are individual approaches to learning. It means that I use my own techniques to make learning easier and faster. So language learning strategies can be a source of research in applied linguistics. To see how the students apply different language learning strategies, to see what language learning strategies the students use when they read a passage, when they listen to a file, what language learning strategies each student use at different levels, for example, beginner students, elementary students, intermediate students. The language learning strategies are individualized ways of making learning easier and faster for the language learners. When you want to conduct research in this area, you may ask students to talk about the feelings they experience during learning something and the strategies, the ways they use in order to overcome their stress, for example. Used to improve their ability to acquire, understand, and use a language. Exactly, that's right. Yes, for example, the language teaching or language learning steps you take in order to make it easier for the students to understand something. This can be an area of research. The fourth area of research is language assessment. What do we mean by language assessment? Can you give me some topics related to language assessment? The actions that are consciously deployed by language learners to help them learn and use a language. That's right, it's about the strategies again. Good. So what about language assessment? When you want to enter the class, please write your names instead of the student numbers, okay? Because I see some enter the class with their student numbers. I prefer to see your names. So how to evaluate language skills? That's right. The process of evaluating, Assess different language areas, exactly. As a measure of the proficiency a language used has in many given language, By communication, measure of proficiency, good. So assessment means testing. These are the concepts that are important. Practicality, reliability, validity, authenticity, washback, exactly. Which ones to use? Yes, that's right. So when we say language assessment, it is related to the concept of language skills and components. It means the way we test, we evaluate, we measure the students' acquisition, the students' learning. For example, you want to see how the students actually act and what is the students' actually favorite form of testing reading, whether they want text followed by yes/no questions, followed by true/false questions. When you give the students different forms of tests to evaluate their listening skill, when you play the listening once or when you play the listening phone 3 times, how it can influence the students' scores in listening tests. So by language assessment, we mean different strategies and different test types we use in order to evaluate and measure the students' learning and acquisition of different skills and components. You may use dynamic assessment, for example, as a concept which is recent. By dynamic assessment, we mean during the semester, we assess the students' abilities and we give them a score based on the performance they have had during a course. By language assessment, we mean different types of tests like achievement tests, like proficiency tests, like placement tests. We mean the topics like criterion-based testing. So language assessment is related to what you study in the testing course. And all those topics can be the source of research in applied linguistics. Determining, as one of your friends said, determining the validity and reliability of different tests. For example, the scores of the students on TOEFL, on IELTS test can be evaluated and interpreted, and different strategies that can improve the students' performance on these international tests can be investigated. Yeah, that's right. Different games can be used in order to see whether they can influence the results of the students' test. Yeah, to see whether practice makes perfect or not. Good points. Thank you. So another area of research is related to first and second language acquisition. For example, a mother is a researcher and decides to observe her child from the very early days of being born to see how language develops. Do you know Krashen's model, natural order? Have you heard of it in your methodology course? Natural order. Have you heard Natural Order by Krashen? Krashen is a great figure in our field of study. Krashen is a great scholar, researcher in our field of study, okay? Krashen says we learn a second language like English the same as actually how we learn the first language. For example, when we are born, we start listening to people, then we start saying words. So where first it is listening that develops inside us, then we have speaking. Then we go to school and start reading, let's say, and start actually learning reading and writing. Yes, thank you, Aghaye Jasem Muhammad Saleh. The natural order learners acquire the grammatical morpheme before the morpheme third person. Exactly. So we start learning simple things and then we move to complicated things. We start learning regular things and then we start learning irregular things. Okay? So Krashen believes that students learn the second language, for example, English, the same as they learn the first language. It means that when students come to your class, we do not force them to speak in the early stages, okay? So first we give them time to listen to different sources. Then we give them time to say words, to say sentences, and then to say paragraphs, and then to be able to speak. And before they are able to speak fluently, they need to read a lot. And writing is the final skill that is developed. So this is natural order. It means that the students learn, for example, simple past by adding D or ED to the verbs before they learn irregular forms. For example, the students learn a verb like clean, cleaned, easier, and sooner compared to the verb like bring. The past form is brought, irregular, okay? So in first and second language acquisition area of research, the researchers focus on the order of acquiring language, different factors that can influence and can increase the speed or decrease the speed of learning among the students. Thank you very much. Yes. It has five, actually, Krashen has 5 hypotheses. You're right. Natural order is one of the hypotheses that I said. There is similarity between learning native language and the target language. Exactly. Language proficiency is process of putting one's gained knowledge of language to practice. Good. So all the definitions that we have of these actually can be considered as part of first and second language acquisition area. Great. So we have another area of research which is called ESP, English for Specific Purposes. Have you heard about this? English for specific purposes. What is it? Good. So can you tell me some topics that can be the topic of research for ESP? Great. English for the students of medicine, for education, for job. Exactly. So we have English for academic purposes, which include using English for different disciplines, different majors, different educational purposes, or English for occupational purposes. It means that, for example, the pilots, the nurses, the taxi drivers in international airports, the way they need English. Okay, good. So when we say English for specific purposes, it means that English is the medium of instruction while content is presented. For example, English for the students of medicine, the texts are related to medicine. The texts are related to the health areas. The texts are related to different types of drugs, to different ways of curing diseases. But the texts are in English. They are presented in English. So, thank you very much. So when we say areas of research in English for specific purposes, we mean the actually factors that can influence the students' learning of English in order to fulfill the expectations in their academic communities or in their occupational communities. The way language is used in different fields, in different areas of research. Yes, it is. It becomes a special and particular. That's right. Training students in higher education setting to use language appropriate for their study. That's right. Do you remember the example I made about chemistry, writing a lab report, laboratory experiment report? For example, laboratory report is a particular text type which is used by the students of chemistry and physics. It has its own parts. So if I want the students to be able to write a lab report in English, I need to identify different sections of the lab report and teach those to the students. Yeah, so it has a particular purpose. Do I teach how to write a lab report to a students of psychology? Of course not. The students of psychology actually do not need that. What do the students of psychology need? They need to be able to talk to clients who are not actually of the same native language. For example, the international clients they have. So in English for specific purposes, we analyze the needs of different groups of learners. We see different text types that exist in different disciplines. We see how different texts are formulated, different texts are written in different fields of study. Yeah, to apply for a job, to easily communicate with others, and to know everything related to other language. Exactly. So our purpose is to see what factors can help a learner become a proficient user of English in occupational settings or in academic settings. That's right. Another area of research is sociolinguistics. Okay? So, what is it? Can you tell me some topics related to sociolinguistics? So can you say some topics of research in sociolinguistics? Its relationship between socialism, yeah. So it studies sociology and linguistics when they are related to each other, how sociological factors can influence the way language is used. Exactly. Great. Can you give me some topics that can be actually used to research in this area? For example, let me give you, yes, the discipline examines how different social factors, good. So how different social factors such as ethnicity, gender, age, class, occupation, education, and geographical location can influence language use and social roles within a community. Yeah, that's right. For example, you have two groups of students. They are of different gender. For example, male students and female students. You want to see different strategies male and female students use when they want to speak in the class, when they want to participate in group work activities. This is part of sociolinguistics study. Yeah, how social factors can influence, exactly. Or you have different districts. Of course, for example, in, I don't know which city in Iraq you live, but in each city we have different districts. We have different sections. They have different socioeconomic status, okay? You may want to evaluate and assess the students' different skills in different districts of your city to see what needs the students in each part of the city have. This is sociolinguistics. You analyze different cultural backgrounds to see how it can influence the students' reading comprehension ability. For example, if the students' culture in the country is close to the English culture, they are able to read the passages in English better or not. This is part of the sociolinguistics. Now, what about psycholinguistics? Sociolinguistics is the study of social factors and they link with linguistics, with language. Psycholinguistics is the relationship between psychological factors and language-related factors. So can you give me some examples of the topics? Psycholinguistics, related topics, affect, motivation, exactly, good. Students' level, the influence of the students' motivation, for example, on their ability to speak. Good. What else? For example, when you evaluate the students' anxiety. Yeah, that's right. So we are dealing with psycholinguistics now. Good. The study of the human mind, behavior, and emotions, that's the point. So psycholinguistics is an area of research in which we conduct research on the way the students' emotional, affective factors can influence their learning of different actually skills and components. So let me read what your friends wrote. The same relationship between psychology and linguistics. That's right, the body language, you're right, good. Then motivation, yeah. Dialects, register, and style. Register and style are related to sociolinguistics because register and dialects are related to the geographical and cultural sites, okay? So they're related to sociolinguistics. How to reduce a student's anxiety in the exam. Exactly. This can be a topic for psycholinguistics. the relationship between a student's level of anxiety and their willingness to participate in group work activities in the class. That can be a topic. It is concerned with the cognitive faculties and processes that are necessary to produce the grammatical constructions of language. Good. The cognitive side. The structures and processes which underlie humans' ability to speak and understand language. Exactly. Motivation as one of the factors. Yes, good. For example, multiple intelligences that students have, like interpersonal intelligence, linguistic intelligence, mathematical intelligence, and how these intelligence types can be used in order to develop different activities for the students. Students' anxiety in the exam, that's right. A student's enjoyment in the class, For example, what are the activities that teachers can use in order to let the students enjoy the class time? Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Past history. Yes, how the students' past experiences of learning a language can influence their motivation to learn the language again. How the teacher-student relationship can influence the student's learning. This is another topic. So we can say psycholinguistics is a vast area of research. How to make a cheerful classroom environment. Exactly, that's right. What are the factors that influence the student's happiness in the class? How we can make the class more effective by including games in the class, for example. This can be part of psycholinguistics research. What else? I see some of your friends are typing, so this is why I'm waiting. What are different types of motivation? You know, we have internal motivation and external motivation. So we can analyze the student's type of motivation. Good. What else? It is related to enjoying the lesson and breaking the state of boredom. Exactly. Boredom is the opposite concept of enjoyment. Yeah. For example, you may see what are the factors that may demotivate the students, that make the students bored in the class. What activities I should use as a teacher in order to cheer them up. Good. So everything that is related to the emotional, cognitive, affective side of the students is considered as psycholinguistics. You see, we have connection with different fields of study. Applied linguistics is an interdisciplinary area. By interdisciplinary, we mean we borrow different concepts from different areas of research. We borrow concepts from the neighboring fields of study like psychology, sociology, philosophy. So we use the research findings of other areas of research and make them related to learning the language. This is how sociolinguistics is formed. This is how psycholinguistics is formed. Another area of research, positive motivation works better when it's been used through training with praise given for good performance. If a coach of athlete is overly negative after a poor performance, the result can be a decrease in motivation. That's right. This is the same that happens in our classes when we give feedback to our students. That's right. Next area of research is discourse analysis. Can you tell me what topics can be considered as topics of research for discourse analysis? What do we mean by this? Yeah, to break the boring routine. That's right. That is what we should do, and we can actually conduct research on that. It focuses on how language is structured. Exactly. Discourse is long stretch of text. So when we say discourse analysis, it means analyzing the texts. The text can be written or can be an oral source. For example, you want to see, let me read what you wrote actually with your friends. Analysis of discourse is concerned with the study of language in text and conversation. That's right. The structure of text or utterances longer than one sentence, the content and sociolinguistic context. Good. How language is used in communication. Exactly. For example, I want to see what structures the scientists use when they present lectures in international conferences. What phrases are frequently used by the scientists when they write an article? This is discourse analysis. I want to use how the scholars connect the ideas to each other when they want to say something to their boss, to their classmates. So discourse analysis deals with the language in context. One of your friends that wrote, using language in different contexts. Exactly. So analyzing language use in context, looking at how meaning is constructed. Exactly, good. Linguistics, a method of analyzing structure of text or utterances based on the linguistic content and sociolinguistics context. Exactly, that's right. So it means that the way language in use is analyzed, investigated to find the patterns of speech or the patterns of writing. So what about curriculum planning, syllabus design, and ELT materials development? So what about curriculum planning, syllabus design, and ELT materials development? How these points can be considered as topics of research? Thank you very much for good examples of discourse analysis topics, TV advertisements, and social media posts. That's right. How the gender of the producer can influence that. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Farah is your first name or Salam is your first name? Farah, okay. Good, good Farah. And your name means happiness. That's nice. So the process of identifying and organizing the instructional material that the course will follow. So the first is the Muhammad Abdul Rahman Abdul Karim. This is how it is actually read. So involves creating effective language teaching programs, designing syllabi, and developing materials to enhance English language teaching. That's right. Good. So when we say curriculum planning, it means identifying the needs of different groups of students and developing the courses for the students according to the needs that have been identified. Yes. So I should read it as this. آقای محمد صالح جاسم. Okay. So there are various types of discourse that are subject to analysis. One of the main categorization divides discourse into 4 types. Thank you. So you wrote about discourse. So curriculum planning means use the materials to clear the idea like colorful pens or boards. Good. Thank you. So by syllabus design, we mean setting goals and objectives for different courses. For example, you define the goals for an academic year. You define the goals for different sessions. Okay, and ELT materials development, for example, you may say, okay, I want to compare the books that are used in mainstream education in schools in Iraq and in Iran to see which books are more effective to teach the students English. So this is part of ELT material development. Or we can have material evaluation research. For example, you may evaluate a textbook like Headway in terms of visual elements to see how many pictures, how many photos, how many black and white photos, how many colorful photos are included, which of the visual elements are used in order to teach the content better, which of the pictures are used in order to decorate and make the book interesting. You may evaluate the materials in terms of the number of activities or the type of activities they include. For example, how many of the activities for reading comprehension in Headway include the ones which improve the students' critical thinking. So by this area of research, we mean analyzing and evaluating the content that is presented to the learners in order to learn better, in order to understand the concepts much better, in order to be able to analyze and acquire the linguistic features in different contexts better, how to prepare the students more effectively for actually communication with other people who are of the same language or of a different language. These are the major areas of research that we have in applied linguistics. Some studies have been conducted and there are still gaps which have not been fulfilled by the scholars. So you may be interested in conducting research, so you may study, for example, articles related to sociolinguistics to find a topic that has not been investigated before. So, for example, you want to actually investigate the influence of the students' socioeconomic status on their willingness to go to English classes in the private institutes. For example, you may have this hypothesis that those students who suffer from poverty may not be that much interested because it is not considered as their needs. Okay, so you want to investigate this topic. You go to different districts of the city in which people of low socioeconomic status live, and you go to other areas of the city in which people of high socioeconomic status live, and you ask them about their basic needs and whether they see learning English as a necessity, whether they like to learn English, if they have this possibility, will they attend English classes? And then based on your observations, based on the data that you collected, you come to the conclusion. The conclusion might be anything. For example, you may see that many students in the districts of low socioeconomic status are willing and eager to attend English classes, but they're not able to afford it. But it doesn't mean that being of the low socioeconomic status makes the students less interested in learning a language. So the conclusion can be the research report you present to the research community, to an international conference, or to a journal. So this was the actually overview of different topics and different areas of research in applied linguistics, which were presented in chapter 3. I don't want to overload you with lots of chapters, and because this was the first session, I think we can end this session now so that you have time to study chapter 1, 2, and 3 that I covered. I will share these slides for today on Telegram group, and I uploaded the slides on LMS. You can download them. Please study chapters 1, 2, and 3 of the book carefully and be prepared. Next week, we are going to actually cover chapters 4 and 5, which are related to research paradigms. And paradigms are really important to know. So these were theoretical aspects. From next session onwards, we are going to have some practical considerations of research, more examples. So if you study these 3 chapters, you have a good background of what research is in applied linguistics, and you can participate much better. So thank you very much for your great participation in the class. Another point is that next week on Wednesday, some of my students have their final exam. So we may not be able to have the class in the morning. I will set a time and I will actually talk to the representative of your class so that we can change the class time for next week, okay? And I will let you know on Telegram group. So stay tuned for the latest actually news on Telegram group so that you can attend the class. Thank you very much. Thank you. I really enjoyed actually your participation and your good comments. Thank you. That's great. So the important points are presented in the slide. So you can refer to the books and study the parts that were covered in the actually slide. So you find the most important points. So see you next week. Have a nice time.